Today is the 13th of February 2025, and of course, today marks World Radio Day.
KTU Radio 87.7.
And to commemorate this day, KTU Radio has put together this particular show for you. The name is Benedicta Yao Hinewasamwa, but you can simply call me Adicta Vida. And of course, I'm not doing this alone. Of course, in the studio, Simon Kojodogbe, Simon Oscar Gisam, and Gideon Obeng. Together, we celebrate World Radio Day on KTU Radio 87.7 megahertz. World Radio Day is celebrated on February 13th every year to acknowledge and celebrate the significance of radio in shaping society and, of course, culture globally. It is a day to recognize the importance of radio in promoting information, education, and most importantly, entertainment across diverse communities. So today, we are celebrating this day basically to acknowledge the importance of radio in our societies, in our communities, and the world at large. Every year, every year during this celebration, UNESCO puts together or comes up with topics that need to be discussed or topics that we discuss to find possible solutions to problems in our society, our nation, and the world at large. Notwithstanding this year, we are discussing radio and climate change, sustainability, and climate change. That is the topic for discussion today to commemorate the day. If we talk about climate change, what exactly is climate change? What is sustainability? And how does radio links with climate change? I know we've been hearing climate change for a while now. When we were kids growing up, we've been hearing climate change, climate change, climate change. And sometimes we just can't help but wonder what exactly we are talking about or people are talking about. Today on the show, will definitely help you understand what climate change is and what measures, if put in place, can help, achieve a sustainable environment. So before we delve straight into the conversation, you can follow us on our social media handles 877 KTU Radio on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that is X, and on TikTok and YouTube, it is KTU TV. And again, wherever you happen to find yourself, you can listen to us via KTU Radio radio12345.com. Once again, welcome. And let's get started. Let me quickly welcome my people and let's get the conversation started. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Yadikta Buddha.
What's up with you?
Uh, Today we are celebrating World Radio Day, and so we are here to educate our lovely listeners on climate change, just as you said. And it's been a very normal Thursday, nothing new, nothing strange. Everything is just going on well as planned. Yeah.
On your side.
Yeah, on my side.
Yes,
As
as
planned.
planned. It's not everything that is going on well as planned on my side. So basically, on your side, I feel you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So before even we get straight to the conversation, let's talk about radio. Let's talk about radio. If we say radio, in fact, everybody have been hearing radio. Even growing up, if we say radio, the anima, yeah, you know the box. The box there that will be tuning off and tuning in and then hear people talk. But if we say radio, what is radio briefly?
Okay, so in my opinion, I would say radio is first of all a technological device. Okay, that transmits over signals, and then it gives people information. And to cut everything short, I would say radio is a medium where people receive information, where presenters also give out information over signals. Yeah.
Okay. Um Simon.
Okay, thank you very much. So, just like my good brother and my good friend rightly said, radio, I wouldn't say it's a technological device, but radio itself is a signal. Yes, whereby we can transmit, the voice but when you talk about the station, that's what yeah, we transmit what's going on here. The feed to the audience and to the listeners. But radio is basically to help. To reach out to a number of people, and then over the period of time, radio have been one of the medium of communication, reaching out to people. So a little I can add up to radio.
Okay. Gideon.
All right. A special good afternoon to all listeners of KTU Radio. Before I even talk about radio, I just want to put a correction to my name. My name is Gideon Nana Obeng. It comes all together, so we don't mention one without the other. So, listeners, my name is Gideon Nana Obeng, and today, as we commemorate World Radio Day, my little idea of what radio is or what radio could be wherever. I think it should be a universal language where we are all going to be able to understand. And that is radio becomes a medium where information is transmitted. So it is either we are receiving or we are giving. Yes. So somebody is on the giving end and there's another person on the receiving end taking the information and then using it for whatever purposes. So if we are celebrating radio, and as per UNESCO, finding it worthy that we talk about a very crucial and pivotal topic, which has to do with climate change. And I think is a step in the right direction because we are all being affected by climate change. And that's why we are basically here this afternoon. Thank you.
Okay, so let's head straight to our topic for conversation this afternoon. That is sustainability and climate change. If we talk about climate change, what exactly is climate change? Any of you can take it for me.
Right. So climate change. To the lay person who may not know what climate change is, climate change is basically um, an abnormality in how the climate is. What then is climate? Climate is um, the, in simple terms, the kind of weather conditions we experience or the kind of atmosphere that we live in becomes what we can term as climate. And there are a number of factors that would cause the climate to change. And we know that even as we are talking right now, we find ourselves in an environment. And if you look at the ecosystem really well, you see we have the atmosphere, we have the stratosphere, we have the toposphere, and the atmosphere. We have so many of the spheres. So if there's a distraction that is being caused to any of these layers, then it actually has an impact on we the inhabitants or the people living in that specific demographic area. So climate change is about the alteration caused in the normal occurrence of the um, climate. If something is causing a change, an apparent change, then it means that the climate has been changed. And going forward, my brothers here are equally going to be talking about some of the effects and how we are going to be able to mitigate all these effects and look forward to a sustainable plan just so we can have a safe and green well.
Oscar, your opinion or your submission on climate change. What is climate change?
So, climate change basically is the long term warming of the planet due to an increase of the global temperature. And so, in relation to this, in a very practical manner, the post COVID era, before that, we had experienced normal rainy seasons within April, May, all the way through to the months. And after COVID, we realized that there was sudden change in the weather conditions. And so, we usually expected raining. We usually expect rains to fall within April, June, July. But then after COVID 2021, that very year, I quite remember that we experienced rainfall in Ghana here later December, and there were heavy rainfalls in the latter part of the year. And so, these are some of the climate change and how it causes the weathers to change in the year as far as what we know is not going according to plan.
Okay, don't be.
Okay, so what my brothers said, I'll call them honorable brothers. So in the world we are living in, we have patterns on which things happen. So the climate also have a pattern. So like my brother rightly said, in April we expect, rains through to June,
Yeah.
July, yes. And also you see, when you realize this year, earlier this year, it began rain, which is not supposed to be so. So when there are alterations, let me say alterations affecting this climate, what we know, this pattern we know, then we can basically say there's a climate change. And as my brother rightly said, after the we are in the post-COVID era, you realize that there have been some alterations in affecting our climate, era. So I think climate change is something that we really need to look at and then find some sustainable parameters to factor all these things.
Okay. So, as you were all speaking, you made mention of abnormalities, alterations, and all that. So, to my next question, what causes these abnormalities? What causes these alterations?
Okay, so I'd like to start from you see, back in the days when we used to go to create primary and then GHS, they used to tell us that when cars they spill out fossil fuels that are very dirty from their engines, it causes changes from the weather. And so, if we have fossil fuels that are this dirty, they all poses threat to the society. And we also have the carbon dioxide, we have methane, which also causes these abnormalities, and as well gases. So all these things comes together to causes these changes to form these abnormalities within the climate.
Okay. Gideon.
All right, so let's not go so far from, you know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That's what they say. You're asking of causes, what brings about climate change. Even the kitchens we used back in the time, we used to go to the kitchen and then we use firewood and all that. Now, wood itself has a component called carbon, right? It's an element, it's a chemical element, and it's found in, carbon is actually one of the most commonest and very much abundant element in everything. It's one of the most abundant naturally occurring chemicals. We find them in woods, and then even if we are in a kitchen and then we put our firewoods into the fire and then we are cooking and doing all the burning and stuff, the smoke that rises causes a change in the climate. How does this happen? So somebody would ask, where does all this smoke go? The smokes from the car exhausts, the smoke from our factories, the smokes from even our little burning of rubbishes behind our houses. Where do all these smokes go? Now there's a part of the stratosphere where smoke actually goes. Technically, this is more scientific. It goes there and then it transforms, it condenses into something else and comes back as rain. That's what science is saying conventionally. But then we've been exposed that there's a layer up there in the atmosphere called the ozone layer. And now this ozone layer is actually giving us a protection from ultraviolet rays posed by the sun. And all these smokes that are going up there are causing a depletion in the ozone layer. That's how come we have a direct impact of sunlight on the earth. And this sunlight is equally causing glaciers to be melting, which is equally bringing an uprise in the sea levels, making the seas higher than the earth. Because technically, God created the earth to be that the land should be higher than the sea. But right now, we can find out that even the sea is becoming as equally as high as the earth. And this and many other things, the pattern in which rainfall is equally affecting um, agricultural and many other aspects of the economy or the lives. So causes the firewood, car exhausts, and all these smokes causes a depletion in the ozone layer, which affects everything that we see today.
Simon.
Okay, thank you very much. So my brothers have made a very good submission. So I would say that. So let's say, for instance, my brother here, Oscar said fossil fuel, I mean, smoke from firewood and then all that. When they all join together, just imagine it's polluting our air. You realize that there will definitely, when it goes up, it will cause a change, like my brother was explaining. And also, I also want to talk about the ocean acidification. There are some factories, some manufacturing industry, some processing companies who throw out their waste. Let me put it that way for a layman to understand. Throw out their waste into the ocean. When this chemicals and this waste, I mean, product goes into the ocean, the causes. I mean, we have living things also in the ocean. I mean, and some of them feed on some of this waste that is being. So you realize that it's actually causing, I mean, a change, because there are people who consume protein a lot. So if, I mean, there's ocean acidification, you realize that we are actually destroying some of this living organism in this oceans, and yes, please,
Yeah.
and then causing leading to also climate change, such as you realize that our sea levels on just like that is just rising up. So I think these are some of the things we should also look up to. Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right. So we've basically stated some of the options, some of the causes of the climate change, and you guys have spoken a lot. If you just join us, this is KTU Radio 87.7 megahertz, and we're having a conversation on sustainability and climate change. Let's come to, let me ask you this question actually. So, you made mention of the carbon or carbon, the sea levels, and all that. I want to know, how can individuals make a meaningful impact? How can individuals make a meaningful impact in reducing their carbon footprint and then mitigating climate change? I don't know if you are getting my question. How can like we, as we are speaking now, we did mention of carbon, fossil fuels, and all that. So as an individual, right?
Yeah.
How can I reduce, how can I impact in reducing the footprints of such, basically, solutions or suggestions?
All right. So I would first of all kick the ball by saying that Ghanaians as we are, we always want to know the end result of something before we embark on what we are supposed to do. So to educate people on this, on how to kick against that, to make an impact, I would first of all say that you have to spread the mileage that if the ozone layer is depleted, we will fry like popcorns, because the heat from the sun, your skin can't contain it. And so what are you supposed to do? First of all, people who use wood and then fire, that causes up smoke that goes upwards, they should desist from that.
Hmm.
And so let's educate people on how to use cylinders, how to use stoves, and electric stove and what have you, just to prepare their foods, prepare everything they want to do with. And again, I would also say that if people are not educated enough to know the consequences of their actions, then I think there wouldn't be any great impact if we are to embark on such things. So I believe that the education on we telling people to stop using firewood should be very, very, very keen, so that everyone will pay attention to. And then not long ago, the assemblyman at Mount 50 distributed 500 cylinders to the people in the municipality, and so in the municipal. And so I think if everyone should embark on such a project, then I think there will be less, smoke going upwards, and people will be very, very well versed with how to use cylinders. And also we educate them on the wrongdoings, or what you are not supposed to do when you are using a cylinder.
No,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Right. So basically, one of the things that we can do as individuals in mitigating the effect or averting the effects of climate change is waste reduction. Waste reduction. I think this is very basic, and any other person can do this. So, well, the first thing I'm going to talk about when it comes to waste reduction is that we should limit the waste we produce in our homes, whether you are at school, you are wherever. Now, let me cite a very practical example. If we go out to buy items from a shop, we go to the shop and they give us the items in a PVC rubber, like in a polyethylene rubber. That's the polythene bags that we see. Now, if we come to our homes and we need to buy other items, we technically leave the poly bags that we came in with in the house and go to the shop again to get another poly bag and bring home. Now, where are all these rubbers going? So, one of the ways we can reduce this is that one poly bag can be used to do many other things. So, if you go to a shop to buy one thing and they give you the item in a poly bag, on your next purchase, you should also go with that same poly bag, just so you don't get to have much of these things here. Because the only thing that will cause you to take, like, the only way you're going to get rid of that waste is to burn them. The only way to get it, because they are not biodegradable. You can put rubber on the floor and it's going to be there for 10 years and it won't get degraded because it's not organic. It's a very inorganic material. So the only way we can do it is to burn it. And then burning is what we have actually stated that it causes a depletion in the ozone layer. So one of the things we can do is to minimize waste. And again, leftovers. We should use up leftovers. How do we use up our leftovers? Like I mentioned, anything that can be reused, we should reuse them. We shouldn't feel like, okay, I've used this, I have it in abundance, and so I'm going to get a new one to do this. We should reuse them. And the burning that we burn in our home should be something that should be minimized. So we should use the waste management systems, say the Zoom Lion and the likes. People would like to burn their rubbishes rather than to give them to the Zoom Lion companies. And that's a very appalling attitude. So we are urging the individuals out there, we are urging everybody out there that they should be employing these tactics rather than burning the waste. Right. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. So, my brothers have made a very good submission. Like, I'll start from education. Education is key when it comes to, having for individuals to mitigate, climate change. So, I want to pick it from this angle. Let the individuals understand where we are going to. Because when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals,
Goals.
goal 13, it talks about climate change actions. So you see, in Ghana here, and we have more than 55% of our lands used for agriculture. And agriculture, you need water. So when the depletion of the ozone layer, that means it's getting very hot as we are moving on when it comes to so far as climate change is concerned. So therefore, we should understand that it is getting to a time, if we don't look at this individually, and there's going to be water scarcity. So one of the ways we can do this is through education, like my brother rightly mentioned, for us to save water, for us to, unnecessary leakages, fix our pipes, and then all that. And also, I'd like to add, we should try using, renewable energy concern. For instance, we can, instead of going for fossil fuel, firewood, and then all that, we should rather go in for, the solar panels. That one is much more efficient. We should go in for the wind kind of
The wind
yes,
turbines.
the
The
wind
windmill.
turbines. Thank you. In producing, energy for energy consumption. That one will reduce, the factors that contribute to climate change. Thank you very much.
Okay, so while we were speaking, generally we were touching on agriculture, water, and all that. Let's look at Ghana. Yeah, let's look at climate change and how it affects our economy as a country.
Okay, so to talk about Ghana and how we will be affected by the climate change, I would say that first of all, talking from the savanna areas and also the tropical areas, these are regions where I would say that they are very much privileged to experience rainfall consistently, unlike those at the upper east, upper west, like from the northern sector of the country. They find it very very hard to experience rainfall because it is rightly said that they are always closer to the sun, and so for that matter they experience high sunshine and then they experience low rainfalls. And to help those at the upper east, just recently a project was done by um, um, I think if it's not Harvard, then it will be Oxford. That they caused rainfall by using salt and then sodium, and I think there's one chemical in addition. I stand to be corrected. Either chloride or sorry, chlorine, and any other one. And so they did this, and then they launched rockets filled with all these chemicals, and as it flew higher and busted in the air, in the atmosphere, it busted in the clouds, and so for that matter it formed, and then they experienced rainfalls. And so if such projects have been done, tested and tried and is working, then I find it very achievable that if we can adopt such projects and embark on it in the country at these savanna areas, sorry, these upper east, upper west areas, then I think that it is going to help us all, because these projects, they are one of a kind. They are not normally done day to day. It takes time, and then once it was tested and then it worked perfectly, then I think if we embark on such projects, it can be done, then it's cool. We can do it.
Okay, um, Gideon.
I think your question was about the effects of climate change on the economy.
Yeah, since we've touched on agriculture and water, and then yeah, we touched on water, agriculture, leaving the economy out. I basically want to know how it affects our economy.
Right. So in the past administration, in the Nanado Bamia government, the government used huge sums of money to develop dams in agricultural areas. Now this is an economic burden because if we had a safe and secured climate back then, I don't think we were going to be suffering the adverse effects of climate change where farmers were not going to get water for irrigation purposes. So the government needed to use money again to build dams for irrigation purposes. And that was actually something that caused a dent to the economy of the country. Then again, the government would have to, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture would have to import food, tomato, onion, whatever, from other neighboring countries. And you know what goes in when a government is importing goods into its country. You know how it affects the government. So these are some of the effects that climate change has had on the economy of the country. There's more to it, but I'll just stick to the two. Thank you.
Okay, all right, lovely.
Okay, so thank you very much. So like I always, because they speak before me, I would like to emphasize on what they said. So
Mm.
looking at how it affects our economy, you realize that in the agriculture sector, most people depend on the rain in order for them. So if there are climate changes, let's say rainfall patterns,
The irregularity
the
in the
irregularities
patterns.
in rainfall patterns, you realize that it affects this farmers. And then in regarding to production, it also lets the production line decline. So when it comes that way, that means that there's supposed to be more money pumped into the system in order to rectify this. So you realize that the people who just rely on the rains to make agriculture process will then have a decline in production. The people who I mean focuses on solar energy, I mean modernized tools in order for them to do irrigation and all that,
Yeah.
they then do more of the production. So you realize that there is no balance in them, which can actually affect our economy. I would like to add that.
Let me make an addition here. Let me speak from my expertise as a food science and technology student. I'm going to be expanding the point I made mention of earlier when it comes to importing goods because there's nothing in the country.
Mm.
On the fact that there are post harvest losses in the country. Now, what are post harvest losses? After a farmer has harvested their crops, because of the alteration in the pattern of the climate, it means that there a lot would have to go into storage, processing, and every aspect of post harvest management of crops. So this is an expanded form of what I was saying earlier, post harvest losses. So if the food products are lost, it means that the market value that the product is going to get, it wouldn't. If because of climate we didn't really get enough water to water the crops are not going to be looking so colorful. They are not going to be having much of the nutritional content because it has been deprived of it. So if the product goes onto the market, the value, let's say I take this thing to the market and say it's 10 cities. If a buyer comes and says, oh, I do say it's not looking so appealing, my of five, that has caused a decline in the economy.
Okay.
It goes a long way to affect the economy,
All
yes.
right.
Yeah, I would like to add just this point. That is the labor productivity. Economically, you would see that when there's climate change, farmers will start crying that we are not experiencing rainfall, and for that matter, production is low, which causes the economy of prices to shoot up. And so if these things are happening, then economically the production of food becomes a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. 10 minutes to 3. This is KTU Radio 87.7 megahertz. So still on sustainability and climate change. We went out there and spoke to our listeners, asking them what they think about climate change and their suggestions that when putting in place could help curb the situation on climate change. So quickly, let's listen to. Okay. What? Climate change is no curb. Definitely, there is going to be scarcity of food, and we are even currently suffering it because we complain about how warm the weather is. We complain about how prices of food, how prices of commodities have increased. And one way or the other, the government and we as citizens are trying our best to help with this particular situation. Because I know that we have the Green Ghana Day where we all go out to plant trees and all that because they say when the last tree dies, the last man dies. And we know trees play significant roles when it comes to climate change, when it comes to, sustainability. So I know we have the Green Ghana. And just recently, EPA spoke about the fact that Ghana would eventually ban polybags, and they have stated that for now they are starting from the supermarkets where they are encouraging the usage of paper bags. Eventually, they'll decentralize it to the marketplaces and our local communities and all that. So that one is also a step in the right direction. So quickly, let's listen to our people, our listeners.
Also climate flooding due to rainfall patterns that are not usual also leads to the washing away of nutrients from our farmlands and render them unusable. Mining activities and the degradation of our farmlands and water bodies is increasing day by day, and this is a considerable threat to our food security. We have a situation where, because we are having irregular rainfall, our farmers need to subscribe to expensive ways of ensuring that they water our crops on a daily basis, and they need to employ irrigation systems, which comes at a high cost. And in turn, this also means that because there's a high cost of producing these crops, to trickle down to the cost of these food crops once they come on the market. And this in turn also affects the day-to-day economy. I believe that our government can play a major role in ensuring that we curb the factors that contribute to climate change. Legislative policies can be implemented to promote environmentally friendly practices, to, to encourage waste management and practices that support and prohibit activities such as deforestation, mining in our forest reserves, and also prohibiting mining in and around our water bodies. We don't have where we don't.
Climate change is simply talking about like a change or shift in temperatures and then weather patterns. Basically changes in like the weather patterns that we are usually used to in the country. I'm using the country specifically because I'm in Ghana, so I would make it more of like a Ghanaian thing. But I know like it's a global phenomenon or global issue. Now, when there are these changes in weather patterns, it could be like a natural change. It could also be due to like human activity and all that. But Ghana is a country where we rely heavily on our weather conditions in making some key decisions in our lives. For instance, let's look at agriculture, solely farming, for example. Growing up and even now, a lot of our farmers rely on the weather pattern in growing their crops for the year. So, for instance, we know that within December, January, up to I think March, where we have what we call the Hamatan season. That's the dry season. So usually you see farmers clearing their lands, planting their crops and all those things just to wait for the June, July rains that would come. That's the rainy season. But I think for some time now, we cannot attest to the fact that it doesn't rain mostly in June, July as it used to. Now, as late as October, November, it will be raining heavily. Like we are in June, we are in July. So, if such situations happen, that's the changes in these weather patterns, meaning there is a high probability that in August, which is supposed to be like an abundant season for us in terms of agricultural produce, it's likely that these things may not happen. And I think we can all attest to the fact that looking at, let's take last year, for example, in August, mostly there's abundance of yam, but I think we can all attest to the fact that it isn't the way it used to anymore. So we'll be in August, we'll be in September, and um, food crops will still be quite expensive as
compared to previous times when in August, in September, they are in abundance, and in fact, they are so cheap. You go to the market and you have like the liberty to buy more with less money. This is to say that changes in these weather patterns does not only affect agriculture or affordable for us now while we look at what we have
Climate as
before
one
the
of
I
the
didn't say changes. To be
greatest
honest,
challenges
I didn't
facing
say changes.
our
Me say we
nation.
should